My name is Emily Carson, and for 28 years I was the ghost in my own family's home. Not the kind of ghost from horror movies, but worse, the kind that everyone sees but nobody acknowledges. The kind that scrubs toilets at 6 a.m., folds laundry until midnight, and somehow remains completely invisible when it comes to family photos, celebrations, or basic human dignity. It was March 15th, 2024, a Friday that started like every other soul-crushing day in the Carson household. My alarm screamed at 5:30 a.m., and I dragged myself out of the converted storage room they called my bedroom. Yes, you heard that right. While my younger brother Jason had the master suite with the walk-in closet and private bathroom, I slept in what used to be a storage space next to the water heater. The room was so small I could touch both walls if I stretched my arms out. But according to my mother, Linda Carson, I should be grateful for a roof over my head. I made my way to the kitchen, my feet cold against the tile floor. The house was one of those massive colonials in Westchester County, New York. 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, a 3-car garage, and a pool out back. My father, Richard Carson, owned a mid-sized insurance company, and my mother spent her days playing tennis at the country club and gossiping with her equally vapid friends. They had money, status, and a beautiful home. They also had a live-in servant they didn't have to pay, me. By 6 a.m., I had coffee brewing, bacon sizzling, and eggs ready to scramble. My mother liked them soft. My father wanted his over easy. Jason, the golden child, preferred an omelet with precisely diced vegetables. Not too big, not too small. If I got it wrong, I'd hear about it for days. Emily, my mother's shrill voice cut through the morning silence. Where's my coffee? You know I need it by 6:15? I glanced at the clock. 6:12 a.m. I had 3 minutes, but that didn't matter to Linda Carson. I poured her coffee into her favorite china cup, the one I wasn't allowed to use, and carried it up the stairs to her bedroom. She was sitting at her vanity, already fully made up, wearing a silk robe that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. "It's about time," she said without looking at me. "And make sure you clean the guest bathrooms today. The Hendersons are coming for dinner tomorrow night, and I won't have them thinking we live like savages." "Yes, Mother," I said quietly. "What was that?" "Speak up, for God's sake. You mumble like some kind of peasant." "Yes, Mother," I repeated, louder this time. My jaw clenched. She waved her hand dismissively, and I left. My stomach churning with the familiar cocktail of rage and helplessness that had been my constant companion since childhood. Breakfast was the usual nightmare. My father read his newspaper and grunted acknowledgments when I placed his plate in front of him. Jason scrolled through his phone, completely oblivious to my existence until he noticed a microscopic piece of red pepper in his omelet. "Emily, you know I hate red peppers. Are you trying to ruin my morning?" He was 26 years old, 2 years younger than me, and had never worked a day in his life. After dropping out of college twice, he now consulted for our father's company, which basically meant he showed up at noon, left at 3, and collected a 6-figure salary. "Sorry, Jason, I'll make you another one. Forget it. I'm not hungry anymore." He pushed the plate away dramatically, as if I'd just served him poison. "I'm meeting Chad at the gym anyway." My father finally looked up from his newspaper. "Emily, your brother needs his gym bag packed. Make sure you wash his workout clothes first. They're in his room." "I have to get to work." "Work?" My mother laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You call that little job of yours work? Please. You're a secretary." I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. I wasn't a secretary. I was a senior financial analyst at Morrison & Associates, one of the most prestigious investment firms in Manhattan. I had an MBA from Columbia University, which I'd paid for myself through scholarships, loans, and working 3 jobs. I made $180,000 a year, but my parents didn't know that. They thought I was a low-level secretary making $35,000 annually. When I'd graduated from Columbia 6 years ago, I'd made the mistake of telling them the truth. My mother's response? "Well, don't expect us to treat you differently. You still live under our roof, and you'll contribute to this household. Contribute." That was her word for the unpaid labor she extracted from me every single day. Cooking, cleaning, laundry, grocery shopping, yard work, organizing her social events, running errands, and serving as her personal punching bag when her tennis games didn't go well. After a year of working my dream job while being treated like hired help at home, I'd learned to keep my mouth shut. I let them think I was barely scraping by. It was easier than fighting. But here's the thing they didn't know. I wasn't broke. Far from it. I'd been secretly saving every penny I could for the past 6 years. I had $420,000 in savings and investments. I'd been looking at apartments in Manhattan, planning my escape, waiting for the perfect moment to disappear from their lives forever. That moment was coming sooner than I thought. By the time I got to the office at 9:30 a.m., after packing Jason's gym bag, taking out the trash and scrubbing the kitchen floor, I was already exhausted. My boss, Patricia Chen, noticed immediately. "Rough morning?" she asked, handing me a coffee from the Starbucks downstairs. Patricia was the kind of boss everyone dreams about. Brilliant, supportive, and actually caring about her employees as human beings. She was one of the few people who knew about my home situation, and she'd been encouraging me to leave for years. "The usual," I said, accepting the coffee gratefully. "Thanks for this. Emily, you can't keep doing this. You're killing yourself for people who don't appreciate you." "I know. I'm working on it," and I was. Just that week, I'd put an offer on a beautiful one-bedroom in Chelsea. The sellers had accepted, and I was scheduled to close on April 30th. 6 more weeks of hell, and then I'd be free. But I couldn't tell anyone yet. If my parents found out, they'd find a way to sabotage it. They'd done it before. 3 years ago, I'd tried to move out, had an apartment lined up, and my mother had shown up at my office, crying and begging me not to abandon the family. She'd told my boss, my previous boss, not Patricia, that I was having a mental breakdown, that I was unstable, and that she was worried about me living alone. It had been humiliating, and I'd backed down to save my career. This time would be different. This time, I wasn't telling anyone until my bags were packed and I was walking out the door. The day passed in a blur of financial reports, client calls, and meetings. I was working on a major acquisition deal for one of our biggest clients, a company called Vision Industries. The deal was worth $2.3 billion and I was the lead analyst. It was high pressure, complex work, and I loved it. This was where I felt alive, where I was valued, where my intelligence actually mattered. At 7 p.m., Patricia stopped by my desk. "Go home. Emily, you've been here 10 hours. Just finishing up this projection model. I'll be done in 20 minutes. I'm serious. Go home. Get some rest." If only she knew that home was where the real work began. I arrived back at the Carson house at 8:15 p.m. The moment I walked through the door, I heard my mother's voice from the living room. "Oh, good. You're finally here. We're starving." I found the 3 of them lounging on the couch, watching some reality TV show. Dirty plates from lunch were stacked on the coffee table. The kitchen was a disaster. Apparently, they'd attempted to make sandwiches and had used every dish in the cabinet. "I thought we could order pizza tonight," I said carefully. My father looked at me like I'd suggested setting the house on fire. "Pizza? Linda invited the Hendersons over for dinner tomorrow and you want us to eat pizza the night before? We need a proper meal. Make that chicken dish you do, the one with the mushrooms. Coco vin. A dish that took 2.5 hours to prepare. Dad, I've been at work since..." "Don't start with that attitude, young lady." His voice was cold. "You live here rent-free. The least you can do is cook a decent meal, rent-free." If only they knew I'd been secretly paying the property taxes on this house for the past 3 years. When my father's business had hit a rough patch in 2021, he'd fallen behind on taxes. Rather than admit it to my mother, he'd asked to borrow money from me. $47,000. I'd never seen a penny back, and he'd never acknowledged it again. But hey, I lived rent-free. I went into the kitchen and started cooking. My hands moved automatically, chopping, sautéing, seasoning. Around me, I could hear their laughter from the living room, the sound of people who didn't have a care in the world. People who'd never had to work for anything. People who took everything and gave nothing. The chicken was in the oven when Jason wandered into the kitchen. "Hey, can you iron my shirt for tomorrow?" "I have a meeting." "What meeting?" I asked, genuinely curious. Jason never had meetings. Dad's finally letting me pitch to a big client. Some tech company CEO. He's coming to the house for dinner tomorrow night. My blood ran cold. "What tech company? Vision something?" Dad thinks if we wine and dine the guy, we can get their company's insurance contract. It's worth like $10 million or something. Vision Industries. The company whose acquisition I was managing. The CEO, Marcus Holloway, was coming here. To this house. For dinner. This was either going to be a disaster or the best thing that ever happened to me. I barely slept that night. My mind raced through every possible scenario. Marcus Holloway was brilliant, ruthless, and known for his photographic memory. He'd definitely recognize me. The question was, how would he react? We'd been in meetings together for months. He knew exactly who I was and what I did. He also knew that I was the person preventing his company from getting screwed in the acquisition deal. I'd found 3 major red flags in the initial agreement that would have cost TechVision hundreds of millions. Marcus had personally thanked me, had taken me to lunch, had told Patricia that I was the only analyst in this city worth a damn. If he saw me here, serving dinner to my family like a maid, I decided I had 2 options: hide in my room and avoid him entirely, or lean into the chaos and see what happened. I chose chaos. Saturday morning began with my mother in full panic mode. The Hendersons had canceled, some family emergency, but the dinner was still on with Marcus Holloway. My mother was thrilled. "A real CEO?" she kept saying. "This could be Jason's big break." She spent the entire morning redecorating the dining room, changing the tablecloth 3 times, and screaming at me about every microscopic imperfection she found in the house. "This silver isn't polished enough. Do it again! The flowers are wilting. Go buy new ones. Why does this floor still look dirty?" My father was coaching Jason on how to close the deal with Marcus. I heard him through the study door. Be confident. Make eye contact. Show him you're a leader. Jason, the man who couldn't even pack his own gym bag, was going to pretend to be a leader. This was going to be entertaining. At 5 p.m., my mother laid out my instructions. "You'll serve dinner tonight. Wear something presentable, not those rags you usually wear. And for God's sake, don't speak unless spoken to. This is important for Jason's career." "Of course, Mother." I went to my tiny room and pulled out something I hadn't worn in a while, a simple black dress, elegant but understated. I did my hair and makeup. Not too much, just enough. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see the exhausted servant who'd been running around all day. I saw the woman who commanded boardrooms, who'd earned her MBA with honors, who'd built a small fortune through intelligence and determination. I saw Emily Carson, senior financial analyst, and tonight, I was going to remind everyone exactly who that was. Marcus Holloway arrived at 7 p.m. sharp, driving a sleek black Tesla. He was in his early 40s, tall, with graying hair at his temples and the kind of presence that made people pay attention. My father greeted him at the door with an overly enthusiastic handshake. "Mr. Holloway, so glad you could make it. Please, come in." My mother was practically vibrating with excitement. Jason stood next to them in his pressed shirt, the one I'd ironed, trying to look important. I stayed in the kitchen, finishing the final touches on dinner. Herb-crusted lamb, roasted vegetables, scalloped potatoes, and a cherry tart for dessert. I'd pulled out all the stops because I knew Marcus appreciated good food. We'd talked about it once after a meeting. His mother had been a chef in Lyon, France, and he'd grown up in restaurants. "Dinner is ready," I said quietly, standing in the doorway. My mother waved at me dismissively. "Set the table and start serving." I brought out the first course, a French onion soup that had been simmering for hours. As I placed a bowl in front of Marcus, I felt his eyes on me. There was a long pause, and then, "Emily?" The room went silent. My father frowned. "I'm sorry?" Marcus was staring at me with undisguised surprise. "Emily Carson? You work here?" My mother laughed nervously. "Oh, Emily's our daughter. She's just helping with dinner tonight. Your daughter?" Marcus looked between me and my parents, his confusion evident. "Emily, what's going on?" This was it. The moment of truth. I could play along, pretend everything was normal, and let my family continue their charade. Or I could burn it all down. I chose fire. "I live here, Mr. Holloway," I said calmly, meeting his eyes. "This is my parents' house." Marcus set down his spoon. "I don't understand. You live in Manhattan. You told me you were looking at apartments in Chelsea." My father's face was turning red. "Now wait just a minute." But Marcus wasn't paying attention to him. He was looking at me, really looking at me, and I could see the pieces clicking into place. The exhaustion I tried to hide in morning meetings. The times I'd shown up with burns on my hands from cooking. The way I'd flinched once when Patricia raised her voice, even though she'd just been excited about something. "Emily," Marcus said slowly, "why are you serving dinner?" "Because that's what she does," my mother said with a forced smile. Emily's always been so helpful around the house. She loves cooking for us. Is that true? Marcus asked me directly. I could have lied. I could have protected them. But I was so tired. No, I said simply. It's not. My father stood up. Emily, that's enough. Mr. Carson, sit down. Marcus's voice wasn't loud, but it carried absolute authority. My father sat. Emily, talk to me. And I did. I told him everything. How I'd paid for my own education. How I'd been working at Morrison & Associates for 6 years. How I lived in a converted storage room. How I cooked, cleaned, and worked a full-time job while my parents took credit for everything and gave nothing. How they didn't even know what I really did for a living because they'd never bothered to ask. How I'd been planning to leave for years but kept getting pulled back. How tonight was supposed to be just another night of pretending. I was less than I was. When I finished, the dining room was absolutely silent. My mother's face was white. Jason was staring at his plate. My father looked like he wanted to sink through the floor. Marcus stood up slowly. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. Patricia, he said when someone answered. It's Marcus Holloway. I need you to do something for me on Monday morning. My heart was pounding. I want you to promote Emily Carson to Director of Financial Analysis, effective immediately. Increase her salary to $280,000 and give her a $100,000 signing bonus. Also, I want her transferred to the TechVision account permanently. She'll report directly to you and to me. My legs nearly gave out. Marcus continued. And Patricia, I need you to look into something. Emily's been living in a hostile environment. I want HR to investigate whether her family has been financially exploiting her. If they have, I want our legal team involved. He hung up and turned to my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Carson, let me explain something to you. Your daughter, the one you've been treating like a maid, is the reason my company isn't about to lose $300 million in a bad acquisition deal. She found discrepancies in the contract that our own legal team missed. She's the best analyst I've ever worked with, and she's been doing it while apparently working a second full-time job as your unpaid servant. My mother tried to speak. Mr. Holloway, I think there's been a misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding. I know exactly what I saw tonight, and I know what I know about Emily's work. He turned to Jason, who was shrinking in his chair.
You must be the son.
The one who consults for your father's insurance company? Jason nodded weakly. Let me tell you something about business, kid. Real leaders don't need their mothers to iron their shirts or their sisters to pack their gym bags. Real leaders do the work themselves. And they sure as hell don't build their careers on the backs of people they're supposed to love. He turned to my father. Mr. Carson, about that insurance contract you were hoping to discuss. Here's my answer, no. I don't do business with people who exploit their own children. In fact, I'm going to make it my personal mission to tell every CEO in my network exactly what kind of man you are. My father's face went from red to purple. Now see here, I'm not finished. Marcus's voice was ice. Emily, how much money have you given your family over the years? I don't know exactly. Ballpark. Maybe. $150,000. For property taxes, Jason's car, my mother's credit card bills. Marcus pulled out his phone again. I'm texting you the contact information for my personal attorney. You're going to sue your parents for every penny plus interest. And you're going to do it from your new apartment in Chelsea, which I assume you'll be moving into as soon as humanly possible? April 30th, I whispered. Too late. You're moving out tonight. Pack your things. I'll have movers here in 2 hours. Mr. Holloway, my mother's voice was shaking now. Surely we can discuss this like reasonable adults. There's nothing to discuss. Mrs. Carson, your daughter is leaving. Tonight. And if you try to stop her, if you contact her, if you come anywhere near her, I will make it my life's work to destroy you. Do you understand me? She understood. 2 hours later, I stood in the foyer with 3 suitcases. Everything I owned fit into 3 suitcases, and watched as my parents sat frozen in the living room. The movers Marcus had sent were loading my belongings into a truck. He'd also booked me a suite at the Four Seasons for the next month and a half until my apartment was ready. Jason hadn't said a word. He disappeared into his room the moment Marcus left. My mother finally spoke, her voice small. Emily, you're really going to do this? You're going to abandon your family? I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no guilt. Just a vast, empty relief. You're not my family, I said quietly. Family doesn't treat each other the way you treated me. Family doesn't exploit and diminish and erase each other. You turned me into a servant in my own home, and you did it so gradually that I almost didn't notice. But I'm noticing now, and I'm done. But where will you go? What will you do? Her eyes were filling with tears. Real or fake, I couldn't tell anymore, and I didn't care. I'm going to live my life, Mother. I'm going to wake up in a hotel suite tomorrow and order room service for breakfast. I'm going to go to my job, my real job, the one you couldn't be bothered to learn about, and I'm going to be brilliant at it. I'm going to come home to silence and peace and a space that's entirely mine. And I'm going to be happy. My father stood up. Emily, let's talk about this. You're being irrational. I'm being rational for the first time in my life. I'm choosing myself. I'm choosing my own happiness over your comfort. And I know that's a foreign concept to all of you, but it's what I'm doing. But who will... My mother caught herself, but I finished the sentence for her. Who will cook for you? Clean for you? Make your lives run smoothly while you ignore my existence? I don't know, Mother. I guess you'll have to figure it out. You know, like adults. The head mover appeared in the doorway. We're all loaded up, ma'am. Ready when you are. I picked up my purse, the one luxury item I'd allowed myself, a beautiful leather bag I'd bought after closing a major deal. Inside was my laptop, my tablet, my work files, and my passport. Everything that mattered. Goodbye, I said, not looking back. I walked out the door and didn't cry. I didn't feel sad. I felt like I'd been holding my breath for 28 years and was finally breathing. The Four Seasons suite was ridiculous, bigger than my entire storage room by a factor of 10. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, a king-sized bed with sheets that probably cost more than my old mattress. A bathroom with a soaking tub, a sitting area with a couch and a desk. Room service, maid service, silence. I ordered champagne and strawberries and sat by the window until 2 a.m., just watching the city lights. On Monday morning, I walked into Morrison & Associates at 8:45 a.m., not 9:30, not exhausted, not already beaten down by 3 hours of servant work. Patricia was waiting at my desk with a gift basket and a small crowd of colleagues. Director Carson, she said with a huge smile. Congratulations. The signing bonus was already in my account. $100,000. My new salary was $280,000. A $100,000 increase. I did the math in my head. That was an extra $8,133 per month. For the first time in my life, I could breathe financially. I could travel. I could buy furniture for my new apartment without agonizing over every purchase. I could live. The TechVision account was everything I'd hoped for. Working directly with Marcus Holloway was intense but thrilling. He was demanding but fair, brilliant but open to ideas, and he treated me like the expert I was. He also checked in every few days to make sure I was okay, that my family wasn't harassing me, that I was settling into my new life. You saved my company $300 million. Emily, he told me over coffee one afternoon. That dinner at your parents' house? Best $10 million I never spent on an insurance contract. I laughed. It felt good to laugh. My parents tried to contact me exactly once. My mother called my office 2 weeks after I left. Patricia intercepted the call. Mrs. Carson, this is Patricia Chen, Emily's supervisor. I'm going to say this once. Do not contact my employee again. If you do, we will pursue legal action for harassment. Am I clear? They didn't call again. The lawsuit that Marcus's attorney helped me file was straightforward. Reimbursement for the $150,000 I'd given them over the years, plus interest, plus compensation for 6 years of unpaid domestic labor at market rates. The market rate for a live-in cook, housekeeper, and personal assistant in Westchester County was approximately $75,000 per year. 6 years equaled $450,000. Total amount sought $630,000. My father's attorney tried to argue that it was a family arrangement, that I'd lived rent-free, that I couldn't put a price on family contributions. Marcus's attorney, a woman named Jennifer Shaw who ate opposing counsel for breakfast, destroyed every argument. Your client's daughter paid their property taxes. She has receipts. She paid for her brother's car. She has receipts. She paid off her mother's credit cards multiple times. She has receipts. And while she was doing all of this, she was also working as a full-time maid in their home. We have testimony from neighbors who regularly saw her doing yard work, taking out trash, and running errands. We have testimony from her employer about her arriving late and exhausted. We have her medical records showing treatment for chronic stress and sleep deprivation. Your client exploited their daughter for years, and now they're going to pay for it. We settled out of court for $580,000. I didn't care about the money. I was making enough now to be comfortable, but I cared about the principle. They needed to understand that their actions had consequences. Jason called me once, about 3 months after I left. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Emily? His voice was hesitant. It's me, I know. I wanted to apologize. For everything. I was a spoiled brat and I treated you terribly and I'm sorry. I waited. He continued. After you left, everything fell apart. Mom and Dad are fighting all the time. They had to hire a housekeeper, but she quit after a week because Mom was so horrible to her. Then another one quit. Now they're on their 4th housekeeper, and she's threatening to leave too. Dad's business is struggling. Turns out word got around about what happened and he's losing clients. And He paused, and I heard something in his voice I'd never heard before. Shame. I got fired. Dad fired me. Said I was useless, that I'd never done any real work, that he couldn't afford to keep carrying me. He was right. I've been applying to jobs for 2 months and nobody will hire me. I have no real skills, no real experience. You were right, Emily, about everything. I didn't do this to hurt you, Jason. I know. You did it to save yourself, and you should have. I'm not calling to ask you for anything. I wanted you to know that I get it now. What we did to you. How wrong it was. And I'm sorry. You deserved so much better. I surprised myself by saying, thank you. We talked for a few more minutes. He told me he'd enrolled in a community college, was studying business administration, was working part-time at a coffee shop. He sounded different, humbler, more genuine, more like an actual person instead of the entitled brat I'd grown up with. Maybe, I said before we hung up, when you're done with school, if you're really serious about changing, we could get coffee sometime. I'd like that, he said, and I could hear him smiling. I'd really like that. I moved into my Chelsea apartment on April 30th, exactly on schedule. It was a beautiful 1-bedroom with exposed brick, hardwood floors, and huge windows that let in so much light. I furnished it slowly, carefully, choosing pieces I loved rather than what was practical or cheap. A velvet sofa in deep emerald green. A brass coffee table. Art from local galleries. Plants everywhere. Succulents and ferns and a fiddle-leaf fig tree I named Fred. It was mine. Every inch of it was mine. I started dating, something I'd never had time or energy for before. I joined a book club. I took a French cooking class. For fun, not because someone demanded it. I traveled. A long weekend in Montreal, a week in Barcelona, 3 days in Charleston. I learned what it felt like to live instead of just survive. Work was thriving. The Tech Vision acquisition closed successfully, earning Morrison & Associates a $45 million fee. I got a $150,000 bonus. Patricia promoted me again, Senior Director of Strategic Analysis. My team grew to 12 people, and I loved mentoring them, helping them grow their careers the way Patricia had helped me grow mine. Marcus Holloway and I became genuine friends. He invited me to his daughter's wedding that September, and I went, met his family, laughed until I cried at the reception. His wife Eleanor pulled me aside at one point. Marcus told me what your parents did to you, she said. I'm so sorry you went through that. But I want you to know something. You saved our family. The money you saved us in that acquisition? We're using it to fund a scholarship program for first-generation college students who are working full-time. 20 scholarships a year, full tuition, named the Emily Carson Scholars. I cried in the bathroom for 10 minutes. The first Christmas after I left was strange. I spent it alone in my apartment, and it was the most peaceful Christmas I'd ever had. I cooked myself a small feast, not because anyone demanded it, but because I wanted to. I watched old movies. I video called with Patricia and her family. I felt content. In February 2025, my father reached out through his attorney. He wanted to meet, to talk, to mend fences. I agreed to meet him at a neutral location, a coffee shop in Manhattan, far from their world. He looked older. Smaller somehow. The swagger was gone. Emily, he said when I sat down. Thank you for coming. I'm here. Say what you need to say. He looked into his coffee cup. I was a terrible father. Yes, you were. I don't have an excuse. I was selfish. I took advantage of you because it was easy, because you let me, because I didn't want to see what I was doing. Your mother and I, We raised you to serve us, and that's unforgivable. Why are you telling me this now? Because I want you to know that I know. I know what I did. I know what I took from you, your 20s, your peace, your sense of self-worth. I know that sorry doesn't fix it. I know that I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I wanted you to hear me say it anyway. We sat in silence for a long moment. How's Mom? I asked finally. Not good. She's depressed, angry. She blames everyone but herself. Me, you, Marcus Holloway, society. She's in therapy, but I don't know if it's helping. She lost most of her friends after the story got out. The country club asked her to resign. I should have felt satisfaction, but I just felt tired. And you? The business is struggling. I'm probably going to have to sell it. I'm almost 60, Emily, and I'm realizing I wasted my life building something that doesn't matter while destroying the things that do. You still have a son? Barely. Jason's speaking to me again, but it's different now. He sees me clearly, and it's not a pretty picture. He finally looked up at me. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for a relationship. I just wanted you to know that I'm aware of what I did, and I'm sorry. You deserved better. You deserved love, not labor. And I failed you. I stood up to leave. Thank you for saying that, Emily. He looked up at me, and for the first time in my life, I saw my father cry. I'm proud of you. I should have said that years ago. I should have celebrated you, supported you, loved you. But I'm saying it now. I'm proud of the woman you've become, despite everything I did to try to break you. I nodded and walked away. I didn't cry. I didn't feel angry or sad or vindicated. I just felt free. 3 months after that coffee shop meeting, something unexpected happened. I was working late at the office, by choice this time, not obligation, when I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Hello? Emily Carson? The voice was professional, female, unfamiliar. Yes, who's this? My name is Dr. Rebecca Williams. I'm a therapist in Westchester County, and I'm calling on behalf of your mother, Linda Carson. She's asked me to reach out to you. My stomach clenched. I have nothing to say to her. Please, just hear me out. Your mother has been in intensive therapy with me for the past 4 months. She's been working through some very difficult realizations about her behavior, and she's asked me to facilitate a conversation between the two of you. Not for her benefit, but for yours. She wants to give you the opportunity to say everything you need to say to her, with me present as a mediator. Why would I want that? You might not. And that's completely valid. But Emily, I've been doing this for 23 years, and I've worked with hundreds of families. Your mother is genuinely facing what she did to you. She's not looking for absolution or reconciliation. She just wants to give you a space to be heard if you want it. I thought about it for a long moment. Can I think about it? Of course. Take all the time you need. Here's my number. I called Patricia that night and told her about it. What do you want to do? She asked. I don't know. Part of me thinks it's a trap. Part of me thinks maybe it would help to tell her everything with a witness in a controlled environment. Then do it. Not for her, for you. 2 weeks later, I found myself in Dr. Williams's office, a comfortable space with soft lighting and neutral colors. My mother was already there, sitting in one of the armchairs. She looked different, thinner, older, with less makeup than usual. She was wearing simple clothes, not her usual designer outfits. When I walked in, she stood up, then seemed to think better of it and sat back down. Emily, she said quietly. Thank you for coming. I sat in the chair farthest from her. Dr. Williams sat between us. Emily, let me start by explaining the ground rules, Dr. Williams said. This session is for you. You can say anything you need to say. Linda has agreed not to interrupt, not to defend herself, and not to make excuses. She's here to listen. After you're done, if you want to hear what she has to say, you can. But you don't have to. You can leave at any time. Does that sound acceptable? I nodded. Then whenever you're ready, I looked at my mother. She was crying already, silently, tears running down her face. And suddenly, everything I'd been holding in for 28 years came pouring out. I told her about every morning I'd woken up at 5:30 a.m., exhausted from the night before. About every meal I'd cooked while they watched TV. About every time she'd criticized me, diminished me, treated me like I was invisible. About the storage room. About missing out on friendships and relationships because I was too tired, too busy being their servant. About the shame I'd felt, the way I'd internalized their treatment of me, believing I was worthless, I told her about Columbia, about the 3 jobs I'd worked to pay for my MBA, about the nights I'd cried in library bathrooms because I was so exhausted but refused to quit, about building my career while they mocked my secretary job, about the $150,000 I'd given them, about the property taxes I'd paid, about being their ATM while they called me ungrateful. I told her about the apartment I'd been planning to move into 3 years ago, about how she'd sabotaged it by showing up at my office, about how humiliated I'd been, about how she'd stolen 3 more years of my life with that stunt. I told her everything. When I finished, the room was silent except for my mother's quiet sobbing. Dr. Williams handed her a box of tissues. "Emily," my mother said, her voice barely a whisper. "May I speak?" I looked at Dr. Williams, who nodded at me. "It was my choice." "Okay," I said. My mother took a shaky breath. "Everything you said is true. Every single word. And there's no excuse for any of it. I turned you into my servant because it was easy. Because you were good at it. Because you never complained. Because it meant I didn't have to face my own inadequacies as a person, as a mother, as a wife." She wiped her eyes. "When you left, when Marcus Holloway exposed us, I was furious. I blamed you. I blamed him. I blamed everyone but myself. It took me 2 months to even consider that maybe I was the problem. Your father pushed me into therapy because he was afraid I'd have a breakdown. And Dr. Williams? She made me face everything I'd done." My mother looked at me directly for the first time. "I destroyed my own daughter. I took a brilliant, kind, capable young woman, and I tried to break her. I tried to make her small so I could feel big. And the worst part? I succeeded for so long that I almost didn't realize I was doing it. Why?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Why did you hate me so much?" "I didn't hate you, Emily. I hated myself. I was a 42-year-old woman who'd never accomplished anything, never built anything, never been anything but Richard Carson's wife. And you were everything I wasn't. You were smart, driven, successful. You earned everything you had. And instead of being proud of you, I was threatened by you. So I diminished you. I made you into the help, so I wouldn't have to face my own emptiness." She was sobbing openly now. "I know you can't forgive me. I'm not asking you to. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for what I did to you. You deserved a mother who celebrated you, who supported you, who loved you unconditionally. Instead, you got me. And I will regret that for the rest of my life." Dr. Williams looked at me. "Emily, how are you feeling?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "I'm angry. I'm sad. But mostly I just feel sorry for her. She wasted her whole life being miserable and making everyone around her miserable." "That's a very mature observation," Dr. Williams said. I looked at my mother. "I can't have a relationship with you. Not now, maybe not ever. The damage is too deep," she nodded. "I understand, but I don't hate you. I need you to stay away from me. I need you to let me live my life without your interference." "Can you do that?" "Yes," she whispered. "I can do that." I stood up. "Then we're done here." As I reached the door, my mother spoke one more time. "Emily, you're an extraordinary woman. And none of that came from me. That was all you. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. I see you now, and I'm in awe of what you've become." I left without responding, but as I drove back to Manhattan, I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, it was too early for that, and maybe it would never come. But closure, understanding, release. I called Marcus from the car. "How did it go?" He asked. "It was good, actually." I said everything I needed to say. She listened. She apologized. "It doesn't fix anything, but it helps. I'm glad, Emily. You deserve that." "Marcus, thank you. For everything. For seeing me. For saving me that night. For changing my life. Emily, I didn't save you. You saved yourself. I just gave you permission to do it." Life continued to get better. In June 2025, I got promoted again, Vice President of Strategic Operations. At 31 years old, I was the youngest VP in Morrison & Associates' history. My salary jumped to $420,000, and I was managing 40 people across 3 departments. But the best part wasn't the money or the title. It was the work itself and the people I got to work with. I built a team culture based on respect, support, and genuine care for each other's well-being. I made sure everyone went home at reasonable hours. I checked in on people's mental health. I celebrated their successes and supported them through their failures. I became the boss I'd always wanted to have, someone who saw their employees as human beings first, not just productivity machines. Jason and I started having coffee once a month. He'd graduated from community college with honors and had gotten a job as a junior analyst at a small investment firm. He was making $55,000 a year, sharing an apartment with 2 roommates in Queens, and for the first time in his life, he was genuinely happy. I never knew work could feel good, he told me one afternoon in July. I always thought it was supposed to be miserable, something you just endured. But I actually enjoy what I'm doing. I'm learning. I'm growing. It's amazing. That's because you're finally doing it yourself, I said, not having it handed to you. He nodded. I've been thinking about Mom and Dad a lot, about how they raised us. They taught me that I was special just for existing, that I deserved everything without earning anything. And they taught you that you were worthless unless you were serving them. They screwed us both up, just in different ways. Yeah, I agreed. But we're fixing it. That's what matters. He looked nervous. Do you think... would it be okay if I told people you're my sister? At work, I mean. I'm proud of you. I want people to know we're related. I felt tears prick my eyes. Yeah, Jason, that would be okay. In August, I met someone. His name was Daniel Reed, and he was a high school English teacher in Brooklyn. We met at a bookstore. I was browsing the business section. He was in literary fiction, and we literally bumped into each other near the registers. Sorry, he said, steadying me. I wasn't watching where I was going. Me neither. He had kind eyes and a warm smile. We started talking about books, which turned into coffee, which turned into dinner, which turned into 3 months of dating before I finally told him my story. We were at my apartment, and I just cooked dinner, shakshuka, because I'd learned to enjoy cooking again when it was my choice and not my obligation. Daniel, there's something I need to tell you about my family. Okay, he said, setting down his fork, and I told him everything. The whole story, start to finish. When I was done, he was quiet for a long moment. He finally said, I am so sorry that happened to you, and I'm so grateful you survived it and came out the other side. You're not freaked out? Freaked out? I'm in awe of you. You're one of the strongest people I've ever met. He reached across the table and took my hand. And I want you to know something. I will never, ever treat you like you're anything less than extraordinary. You deserve to be celebrated every single day. And if you'll let me, I'd like to be the person who does that. I started crying. I'd like that too. We got engaged in December, right before Christmas. He proposed in my apartment, in front of the fiddle-leaf fig tree named Fred, with a ring his grandmother had given him. It wasn't expensive or flashy, but it was perfect. Emily Carson, he said, down on one knee. Will you marry me? Yes, I said, pulling him up and kissing him. Yes, yes, yes. The wedding was in May 2026, a small ceremony in Central Park with about 50 guests. Patricia was there, beaming with pride. Marcus and Eleanor came, and Marcus gave a toast that made everyone cry. My team from work came. Jason came with his girlfriend, a sweet woman named Rachel who worked as a paralegal. My parents weren't invited. But 2 weeks before the wedding, I got a letter from my mother. Inside was a check for $580,000, the full amount of the settlement, and a note. Emily, I don't expect this money to fix anything. But I want you to have it for your wedding, for your new life, for whatever you want to use it for. It was never mine to begin with. It was always yours. I'm getting help, real help. I'm learning to be a better person, even if it's too late to be a better mother to you. I'm volunteering at a women's shelter now, helping women who've been in abusive situations. It's the least I can do. I hope your wedding is beautiful. I hope your life is everything you deserve it to be. And I hope someday, maybe years from now, you might be willing to meet for coffee. Just to talk. No expectations. Love. Mom, I showed the letter to Daniel. What do you want to do? He asked. Cash the check? I said. And maybe in a year or two I'll have that coffee. But not yet. I'm not ready yet. Fair enough. The wedding was perfect. I wore a simple white dress, and Daniel cried when he saw me walking down the aisle. Jason walked me down the aisle. It felt right, having him there. Both of us having survived our parents' dysfunction in different ways. Patricia gave a speech about the day I'd walked into her office 6 years ago, exhausted and defeated, and how she'd watched me transform into the powerful, confident woman I was now. Marcus talked about the night he'd shown up at my parents' house, how he'd known something was wrong the moment he saw me serving dinner, how proud he was to call me his friend. And Daniel's speech was simple. Emily is the strongest, kindest, most brilliant person I've ever known, and I get to spend the rest of my life loving her. I'm the luckiest man alive. We honeymooned in Italy for 3 weeks. We ate incredible food, drank amazing wine, explored ancient ruins, and made love in hotel rooms with views of the Mediterranean. We talked about our future, kids maybe in a few years. A house in the suburbs, but not Westchester. Maybe Westchester is what we joked about. We talked about growing old together, about building a life based on partnership and respect. When we got back to New York, I went back to work energized and inspired. I launched a new mentorship program at Morrison & Associates for young women in finance, particularly those from difficult family backgrounds. We partnered with Columbia to identify students who needed support beyond just financial aid, students who needed someone to believe in them. The Emily Carson Scholars Program that Marcus had started expanded. Within 2 years, we were funding 50 scholarships annually. I met with every scholar personally, told them my story, and let them know they weren't alone. In 2027, Forbes ran a profile on me. Emily Carson, the VP who's changing corporate culture, one team at a time. The article talked about my management style, my focus on work-life balance, my advocacy for mental health in the workplace. It mentioned my background briefly. Carson overcame a difficult family situation to build an extraordinary career, but focused mainly on what I was building now. My father called after the article came out. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Emily? It's Dad. I know. I read the Forbes article. I wanted to say congratulations. And I'm sorry. For everything. Dad, let me finish. Please, I sold the business. I'm retired now. And I've been doing a lot of thinking about my life, about what matters, about the mistakes I made. You were right to walk away. You were right about everything. And I just wanted you to know that I'm proud of you, even though I have no right to be. I was quiet for a moment. Thank you for saying that. Emily, I'm not asking for a relationship. I know I don't deserve one. If you ever need anything, if you ever want to talk, I'm here. That's all? Okay, I said. I'll keep that in mind. We hung up, and I sat there thinking about forgiveness, about healing, about the long, complicated process of recovering from family trauma. I wasn't ready to have my parents back in my life. Maybe I never would be. But I was okay with that. I'd built my own family. Daniel, Jason, Patricia, Marcus, my team, my friends. People who chose to love me, who saw my worth, who celebrated my existence instead of exploiting it. That was enough. It's October 2027 now. I'm 31 years old, and I barely recognize the woman I was 3.5 years ago. That Emily, the one who slept in a storage room, who cooked for people who didn't appreciate her, who believed she was worthless, feels like a different person. Almost like someone I read about in a book. Last week, Daniel and I found out I'm pregnant. We're having a daughter, and we've already decided to name her Patricia, after the woman who saw me when I was invisible to everyone else. When I told Patricia, she cried. "You're going to be an amazing mother," she said. "How do you know?" I asked, "Because you know exactly what not to do. You know how to see people, how to celebrate them, how to love them without conditions. That little girl is going to be so lucky. I think about that a lot, about what kind of mother I want to be. I think about all the things my parents did wrong, and I make a mental list of everything I'll do differently. I'll celebrate my daughter's achievements. I'll support her dreams, even if they're different from mine. I'll teach her that her worth isn't in what she does for others, but in who she is as a person. I'll make sure she knows she's loved, valued, and seen. I'll never, ever make her feel invisible." Yesterday, I drove past my parents' house in Westchester. I don't know why. Maybe curiosity, maybe closure, maybe just wanting to see how I'd feel. The house looked smaller than I remembered. The lawn needed mowing. There was a "for sale" sign in the front yard. I didn't stop. I just drove past and kept going. Back to Manhattan, back to my life, back to Daniel and our apartment and the future we're building together. My phone rang as I crossed the George Washington Bridge. It was Jason. "Hey, quick question. Rachel and I are thinking about getting married. Would you be my best woman?" "Best woman?" "Yeah, you're my best friend. And you're a woman, so..." "Best woman. Is that weird?" I smiled. No, that's not weird at all. I'd be honored. Cool. Also, I'm thinking about going back to school. For my master's degree. I was wondering if you'd help me with my application essays? Of course. Come over this weekend. We'll work on them together. Thanks, Em. You're the best sister ever. You're not so bad yourself. Little brother, that's the thing about trauma, about abuse, about dysfunctional families. You don't just survive them and move on. You carry them with you, but you also get to decide what you do with that weight. You can let it crush you, or you can use it to build something better. I chose to build. I built a career I love, a marriage based on partnership and respect, friendships that sustain me, a relationship with my brother that's real and genuine, a life where I wake up every morning feeling grateful instead of exhausted, and soon I'll build a family, a real family, not the toxic imitation I grew up in. I'll raise my daughter to know her worth, to demand respect, to never settle for less than she deserves. Sometimes people ask me if I regret the years I spent in that house, being treated like a servant. If I wish I'd left sooner, the truth is complicated. Yes, those were terrible years. Yes, I was exploited and diminished and damaged. But those years also made me who I am. They taught me empathy for people in difficult situations. They taught me the value of hard work. They taught me exactly what I didn't want my life to be, which made it easier to recognize what I did want. And most importantly, those years taught me that I was strong enough to save myself. That I didn't need anyone's permission to choose my own happiness. That I could walk away from everything familiar and build something better from nothing. I wouldn't wish my experience on anyone. But I also wouldn't change my journey, because it led me here, to this life, these people, this moment. Marcus called this morning. Emily, I need you on a new project. Another major acquisition, even bigger than Tech Vision. You interested? Always, I said. That's what I like to hear. Also, Eleanor wants to know if you and Daniel are free for dinner next Saturday. She wants to start spoiling your daughter immediately, I laughed. Tell her we'll be there. This is my life now. Important work that challenges me, people who love me. A baby on the way. A brother who's become a friend. A husband who treats me like I'm precious. Financial security, peace, joy. 3.5 years ago, I was invisible. Today, I'm seen. I'm valued. I'm celebrated, and I'm finally free.